So we got back last week from an 800 plus mile trip to the coast that we had to cut short due to Hurricane Idalia blowing through. We were on the southern part of South Carolina's coast, and it brought a bunch of flooding and wind. But since I've been back, I discovered some problems on that trip, nothing that stopped us. But I've been doing a few little things. I put the generator, old AC bay door back on with new rubber for the hinge. Had split in a couple spots and was hanging funny. I've got to do that door and one on the other side still. But I've used this one as my trial because it's so much lighter. I had a battery die of my two 8Ds, which are hiding in the back in the new location from stock. So I've got to replace that. But the bigger issues that I've discovered on the drive were, one, I have an exhaust leak, which you can't really see, but that flex pipe is not connected. It's split in two. So it lets exhaust blow right out of there. So I got to replace that. I've got a piece on order, though I may go to solid. I'm not sure yet. And then this bad boy was still working, but the unloaders seem to be sticking. It's got a newer regulator, which is hiding over here, hanging off the airline, but it was building to 150 psi and not stopping. Like, I'd use air and it would drop and go right back up to 150, and I didn't want to blow holes and stuff and end up with no air. So even though it loosened up whatever the unloaders in here, which don't look all that bad, they freed up and it started working normal. But I'm following the idea that a bus will talk to you, and this thing is clearly not new. It's been in here a while. So I got one from Luke at US Coach, nice remanufactured guy, and gonna stick it on there and have that fixed. The other issue, which I also got the parts to fix, are the shifting got real erratic, and maybe you can see in there right behind my temp switch, which is for the transmission cooler I've added. That's the modulator valve for the air throttle and the V730. And I don't know how long it's been in there, but apparently you're supposed to change it every year or 50,000 miles, and or whenever you change the fluid and filter. It's only like 116 or 17 bucks. And so I've got one of those to swap in as well. But I'm kind of racing the rainy weather today, so I'm gonna try to get this new compressor in, and I'll see what else I can get done. So I forgot to film it, but at the end of the day yesterday, I had successfully reinstalled this remanufactured AC compressor. Got all my coolant lines here and here hooked up. Air from the air filter, exhaust into the system, and the regulator all ready to go, as well as the oil feed line, which is down here, and it seems to be building air just fine. I may go ahead and replace this regulator, even though it's less than a year old, because they're cheap, and seems like good insurance. The old one had passed a bunch of oil and gunk, maybe even some of the coolant, so I had to clean this hose out a little bit. And drained my tanks a couple times after running it, but I got that done, and I got my new modulator valve hiding back there. I'll get in here where you can see that one with the airline coming down. That was actually really easy to change, although you know, it shoots transmission fluid out when your transmission is full, so that wasn't a lot of fun. I think I'm going to pull this fan temp switch setup I've got. You can see it seeps just a little fluid. It's because you can't put a ton of thread sealing compound on it, or it doesn't make ground, which is all that wire does to turn the relay on for my transmission cooler and the double fans back there. The relay lives right here. So I think I may just permanently ground it. It only has power when the vehicle is on, and I don't care that these are running all the time. Like, an extra cool transmission is not ever really going to be a problem with this thing. I did all the calculating to figure out how to rearrange these lines. When I originally installed them, I didn't have the correct flow out of the transmission. And so what I've got to do, because this is actually the outlet at the back of the torque converter housing, I'm going to switch this fitting and reuse this hose to bring it first up to my air cooler, my new one. It'll come out of there, and instead of going back to the transmission, it will snake all the way over to here, to where this one goes. So it goes through the original cooler second, and then from here, that hose is actually perfect to come through this gap, although I need to clean it up a little bit, and go back to the inlet underneath, which is hiding down here. So it will come out of the transmission, through the air-to-air cooler, then through the cooler connected to the radiator, engine radiator, and then back into the transmission. Hopefully that will dump a lot of heat to the air and actually take some heat back from the engine to help keep it cool. But we'll see. It works the way it is, and this does dump heat still, which functionally is heat from both the engine and the transmission at that point. But I think for the cost of one hose and one fitting, routing it the other way first to see if it does better makes sense. I don't know if I'll do that before my next trip or two. We'll see. But it's on the list. The bigger issue, and the one I'm waiting on some parts for, is this problem. That pipe I mentioned was rusted in two. Well, it was worse. This pipe had almost no lip left on it where it mounts to the manifold. You can see some of it is still rusted onto the manifold. I got to chisel that out carefully. And the pipe in between had some significant holes. You can see the tailpipe has one right there that I got to take care of. That one I can probably weld up carefully, or just stick a band clamp over it. I have some extra band clamps coming just in case. This is rusted to the pipe, so I'm gonna have to carefully cut it off, and I'm gonna try my best with only really a couple of days time to work to rebuild this. I've got a not a band clamp, the name just left me. I've got one of the clamps of this style, the originals here, but I've got a new piece with both ends, so I can hopefully build something off of that. A couple of bends, and the straight leg should be long enough to reach over there. We'll see. Yeah, so see what I can do with that. The other project I want to try to do before this next trip, this input shaft seal here on my steering gearbox is leaking. Of course, I'm having to deal with an issue with the steering cylinder. I don't know if you can see it up there. I've got another video. There it is. The steering cylinder I got from Luke is no good. It's leaking at the one main seal over here. You can see it dripping or weeping, and it's really rough. It'll travel and then sort of jerk, and then travel and then jerk. Off center, it doesn't want to move, but then suddenly it'll jerk. It's worse than my old one. My old one leaked but worked smoothly, and this one does both. So Luke's trying to get me another one. His rebuilder said he might have one on the shelf. I'm waiting until Monday to know. Probably not going to have time to change it, even if they can get it to me in time, which they don't seem too worried about doing in a hurry. But it's drivable. It's just a little sketchy with the steering jerking, so I can't really do anything about that right now. But I can go ahead and fix that seal. You can see it's pushed out and leaking like a sieve. So I got to pull this drive shaft, which is new, and then I'll be able to pull out that yoke. Hopefully, I haven't tried yet. We'll see. Go from there.